Hello there, travelers. Welcome to the Tavern. I'm Travis.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to talk to you about playing tabletop adventure games during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's been an interesting time.
It's also been a while since we put out any of these videos.
It's true.
So.
It's true. But we haven't not been playing tabletops.
No, I made a commitment at the beginning of the year. I'm going to play more Dungeons and Dragons, more tabletops this year, and boy howdy,
Well,
I've succeeded.
It's November. So
It's November, and I've definitely exceeded what I've been. I think I've played more this past year than I've played in like the last handful of years combined. Honestly, how about you?
Significantly less.
True.
But none at all. We've still definitely done some stuff in the last year, both virtual and in person from time to time.
So what games have you been playing?
Well, 5th edition.
Okay.
5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, continuing on with our Curse of Strahd campaign. We haven't made a lot of progress this year, but we have played this year. And also Apocalypse. So more of the tabletop RPG that Travis and I created ourselves back in community college.
Yes.
We've mentioned it a few times. And I know you've also been playing a lot of Apocalypse.
Yes, I have.
This year.
More Dungeons and Dragons than Apocalypse. Strangely, more Apocalypse settings though, because I've never played an Apocalypse campaign in recent years that's gone more than 3 sessions, 2 or 3 tops. So I think I've done 4 different Apocalypse settings this year alone.
Oh wow! Okay.
I started off in January. We finished our Until Dawn setting. We shifted into the Wild Wild West setting, which was Fresno in 1887.
Which was fun. I joined for the final episode
Yes,
of
you
that.
did, Edgar Pinkerton. I also joined your Triassic Park session, and we just, for the most part, wrapped up a Star Wars Apocalypse.
And I did a Titanic Apocalypse with some
Yeah.
friends and coworkers a month ago.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Your Titanic one, you only just wrote that like this year, correct? This isn't something you've had this like sitting on a shelf.
No, this was something that was an idea that I had, but had not like actually planned it out until this year, and had designed it with the intention of it being a multiple session, thing, but ended up doing it as a one-off to accommodate a friend that was moving. So I'm definitely going to revisit it in a more fleshed out capacity and make it a multi-parter.
I would love to either be an audience member or a participant in that. I don't really care which.
Yeah.
I just that's a setting I would really like to see in the Apocalypse games that we make.
It worked really well. So I think to go back and do it more fleshed out and change some plot things. I mean, obviously, the Titanic sinks.
Yes.
But
Or
does it? But everything else surrounding it, I will tweak and change and go back and do that again. So yeah, there's definitely been that nice creative aspect of like sitting down and creating new character cards and creating new settings and environments. I haven't really done that with D&D this year, but definitely with Apocalypse.
Nice. But I think most of my Apocalypse stuff that I played was all pre-made. It's all things that I've either at least started with another group of people, or I made like years ago. And then the most recent one, Star Wars RPG, or Star Wars Apocalypse, that was a campaign that I almost fully fleshed out during the 2 years I spent working in a prison as a substance abuse counselor. There's a lot of downtime, just data entry, and you're bored out of your mind, and I needed to escape to another world, so I chose a galaxy far, far away. But aside from Apocalypse, I also, with my coworkers, started teaching some of them how to play 5th edition. A couple of them had prior experience, and we started their campaign in my homebrew world, the Third World. And that's been a lot of fun. They've really kind of eaten that up and taken it and made some really interesting characters.
What I want to know specifically is with shifting to more online play, we've always had maybe one person. Like when I first moved to college, I would Skype in, or sometimes we would have you join, but now you're running a campaign, or we're running a campaign where you had multiple people over the computer, more people over the computer than you had in person.
At sometimes, yes.
And so-
especially before the vaccination, I'd have
Right.
4 or 5 people on the
Online.
web chat at the same time.
So that's something that was completely new. I know some people have always played that way, just because
Yeah.
their group is scattered around the country, around the world. But that was something that was new for us. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, how was it DMing from your point of view? I was there for some of it as a player, and I know some of
Yeah.
the issues we ran into.
So
But
it's definitely challenging, especially when technology is temperamental and things like that. I think our biggest failures in trying to run those games has just been trial and error, trying to find a program that works well for what we're doing. I know a lot of people have had success with Discord, but I know we struggled a lot trying
We
to get
struggled,
that to work.
yeah.
It's not a very intuitive program, so a lot of people that have never used it before really had trouble getting into your video chat rooms and things like that.
we had some audio problems.
We've had serious audio problems, which is bizarre because I think so we started off using Discord, shifted over to Google Hangouts, and Google has been a fantastic resource
Yeah,
during
it's Google Meets now.
Google Meets
Yeah,
now.
and it's really well.
They've made it a
done.
much more like professional kind of like virtual office space to accommodate larger groups of people. It's no longer free for the extended meeting sessions. Like I think it's 45 minutes and then it cuts you out. So I actually opted to pay. It's like $7.99 a month, and then you can have as long of sessions as you want. You can have I think as many people as you want in it.
You know, we had those audio problems, and I think even when the audio was working, it was difficult to do the whole whose turn is it?
Yes.
You know,
yes.
so you've got someone who's in the room saying something and someone who's off in another place trying to be like, oh, I want to do this. And so there's a little disconnect between the people in the room and
Did
the
you
people
guys
online.
ever run into that as a challenge with your group? I know I have a huge group. I've got like 8 players, so I definitely had issues with that.
Right. We did not have as many issues, but we're significantly smaller. It's like a DM and 3 players.
What I've settled on is I'm trying to remind my players, if they're talking as a player, raise your hand so I can see whether you're on chat or whether you're here in front of me that you, the player, are talking. Anything else, if your hands are down, I'm considering it characters talking. So if you try and make a joke like, I slap his ass as I walk by, or something like that, like, okay, you slap his ass, he turns around and punches you in the face, roll initiative, you're in combat. By the way, that punch, you take 4 damage. You know, it's like, no, I was joking. It's like, okay, your hand wasn't up, so your character slapped his ass. I don't know why I would go to ass slapping. I feel like ass slapping and grab assing's pretty standard shenanigans for Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah, a little bit.
But you know, basically just trying to remind them how to roleplay, because there's a lot of people that are like, they'll turn to the dungeon master and be like, okay, I tell this player that I want them to do this so that I can do that. And I'm like, okay, roleplay, tell them.
And
they're just like, oh, okay, I tell you to do this. And I'm like, no. Tell them like you're a person talking to another person.
The dialogue between players, between characters, was definitely harder when your person is another box on a screen. And so it's like how getting them to know, wait, I am talking to you specifically and not just to everyone in this room. That was definitely a challenge. But do you think that having that virtual aspect has allowed you to play more often?
Definitely. I will play once or twice a month, and I've been doing that all year long pretty much. So something I have kind of done to encourage myself to keep playing even through the pandemic is provide myself as a dungeon master and as a hopeful player tools to engage with the game a little bit more. Have you purchased any dice at all during this whole deal?
No. I don't think I have. I don't think I've bought any D&D stuff. I have plenty of dice.
I have. I bought a handful of digital books on D&D Beyond. I bought a set of crystal labradorite dice. I bought the 5th edition set of metal dice that come with a nice like D&D box from GameStop. I also bought a wooden dice tray, which I really enjoy. It's got like a little magnetic catch so you can store a set of dice in it, which is awesome. It's got like a faux leather kind of material on it, so your dice aren't just rolling against bare wood. And I recently bought also from GameStop the Dungeons and Dragons set of magic rings, which is really cool because they're all inspired by the artwork from books, and they tell you like what the rings do. So essentially, my thought was, oh, I'm gonna have my players encounter these rings in game, and then in real life, and be like, here's a prop, because I love using props and things like that. I like being hands-on. Also, I've been listening to Critical Role. I started listening to the first campaign with Vox Machina. Completely in love with it. Anybody who enjoys Dungeons & Dragons in any capacity, I encourage you to at least give it a try. They're long episodes. They're about 2.5, 3 hours long each. And there's about 100 and something episodes in the first season alone. So there's a lot. But it's fantastic.
Yeah, I have not started Critical Role, but I have continued to listen to the film reroll. You know, so as far as like tabletop RPG podcasts and stuff, I'm on it every time they post anything, which is fantastic.
Aside from the film reroll, which I always listen to, A, because of my love for film, B, because of my love for tabletops, was never for me a learning tool so much. I think it definitely inspired a little bit of the mechanics we adapted into Apocalypse.
A little bit, yeah.
But listening to Critical Role, I think has steadily made me a little more conscientious as a dungeon master. It's given me some ideas and some techniques to kind of fold into my own style. And as a player, it gives me a much better idea of how to play certain classes, like magical classes as well. I've struggled a lot dealing with magical characters because I did not quite grasp spellcasting, but just listening to hours on end of other players having to navigate a character sheet and figure out how to use these spells, especially at a higher level, has been a huge resource for helping me learn. And I've encouraged all of my players to, like, please listen to the first few episodes at least, because it's like going to school.
So that's what you've been working on. What are you planning?
I mean, you're a player in my campaign, so I can't tell you too much.
Okay, but I mean, like, as far as, like, continuing this campaign, or...
Definitely continuing this campaign.
You're gonna do a new Apocalypse setting with your coworkers.
Yes, I actually have one of my players who's stepping up, and she's going to be DMing a Resident Evil-inspired Apocalypse game.
Pretty cool.
Which, from what I understand, it is going to be loosely around the events of the very first game. But it's one of those things where it's going to take its own path, and she's got all kinds of ideas for things that were not in the original game for us to run into. This is the first time in a very long while that I'm going to be kind of a consistent player in something like that. Also have a buddy who is going to run a Ravnica campaign based on the Magic the Gathering world, and he's one of my friends.
I think that's really cool.
He's a player in my campaigns, but he's also a buddy that I play Magic the Gathering with regularly. So that's really going to be fun, because he's also incorporating like the physical cards into our character building process. He's like, here's the block set, and you can choose like cards up to your level, like converted mana cost. If you're level 5, then up to a mana cost of 5 to incorporate into your character.
I want to resurrect my Neverwinter campaign,
Oh,
which was something that I wanted to run years ago.
They keep updating the Neverwinter game on console, and we haven't touched it in a long while, so I'm sure there's a lot of content on there for us to go into as well, which I would love to. One little D&D aspect that has kind of popped up during the pandemic that was very disappointing was the I can't even think of the name now. Dark Alliance. The Dark Alliance game that came out.
Yeah.
It stars the Companions of the Huldrest, Catti-brie, Bruenor, and
We were, as people who read those books, we were very excited for that.
And as D&D players.
And with how good the Neverwinter video game was, we thought surely this game will be
And there
good.
was previous Dark Alliance games that were awesome. The trailers really kind of hyped this up, make it look a lot more exciting than it actually is.
Yeah.
Disappointing game.
That being said, we still have fun playing it together.
True.
It's not something that we would ever touch alone, but at least because it's a game that we can play together.
It's a good game to kind of zone out and just chat while you're playing it.
Yeah, because there's not a lot going on.
It's a grindy kind of dungeon crawler game. Not really dungeon crawler. Everything's outdoors now that I think about it.
Yeah.
We haven't been in a single dungeon. Also, the Magic the Gathering set for Dungeons & Dragons, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, has come out.
So a lot's happened this year,
There really has. I'm playing D&D in card games, on consoles, on a table, online.
That's pretty cool.
And listening to D&D podcasts. So the pandemic has not been a total killer of tabletops, if anything, for me. It's been a rejuvenator.
Yeah, which is probably why you're like, Aaron, we need to do a Welcome to the Tavern video. I have a lot to say about D&D.
Yeah, I don't follow a lot of YouTube channels that talk about D&D, so I'd be curious to see what everybody else has been up to and what they're doing. know.
You're gonna do for your siblings.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna on Thanksgiving Day. I am gonna teach some of my siblings, and some of them have already been playing for a while, how to play D&D, and I'm gonna be running the first kind of adventure in the Candlekeep Mysteries book that came out.
Which I would love to play one day.
Yes,
I think that's
it's gonna
really
be.
cool.
I've never run a pre-made campaign before, so the closest was that one time there was that weird little snippet of a pre-made campaign in the back of an old R.A. Salvatore book.
I remember
which
that.
was very fun.
That's the one we did at Starbucks.
That was like probably second edition rule set. It was very bare bones.
Yeah.
It was pretty much you could play this with a D20 and a D6.
It was fun.
It was very fun. It was weird, but it was fun.
So that's what we've got going on. Please share in the comments what D&D you have been playing, or if you would like to, if you're excited for any of the things that have come out this year, or what you're looking forward to with the projected path that D&D is taking.
How do you feel about the new Owlkin race coming out from the Strixhaven set? I'm excited.
More bird people.
I'm okay with that. Bird people are good people.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay nerdy.